It's hard to explain, okay? But
all day, all year round.
it's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are.
WAVR.
News, talk, music, get it all
24 hours
on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar. Good evening and welcome to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and across the world on wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Ivorian Constitutional Council confirms Ouattara's victory in the October 25 presidential election.
Article 1 states that the election held on October 25, 2025 is deemed valid.
Malian authorities extend curfews in Kaya and Jola regions following continued terrorist attacks. South Africa's former president Zuma states his readiness to assist Burkina Faso fight against imperialism.
It was therefore important to discuss with the president here, what can we do to finally liberate Africa?
And Benin's former president Boniai rejects creation of a Senate as public debate heats up. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins in Côte d'Ivoire, where the Constitutional Council has just proclaimed the final result of the presidential election held on October 25. The institution confirmed the figures released just over a week ago by the Independent Electoral Commission, CEI. The Ivorian head of state, Alassane Ouattara, is scheduled to be sworn in on December 8. Augustine Colley has more in this report.
The Constitutional Council's announcement on Tuesday validates Alassane Ouattara's re-election for a new 5-year term. The pronouncement of the October 25 presidential election results by Chantal Camara, president of the Ivorian highest judicial institution, comes a week after the Independent Electoral Commission announced Ouattara's victory in the first round.
With Mr. Alassane Ouattara securing 3,759,030 votes, equivalent to 89.77%, surpassing the absolute majority needed for a first-round victory, the following is established. Article 1 states that the election held on October 25, 2025 is deemed valid. Article 2 declares Mr. Alassane Ouattara elected as the President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire in the first round.
No appeals were filed by any of the candidates to challenge the IEC's results. This situation, in effect, made the deliberations of Chantal Camara and the 6 other members of the Constitutional Council much easier. Re-elected for a new term with a voter turnout of 50.10%, Alassane Ouattara will be sworn in on Monday, December 8, 2025 at the Presidential Palace in accordance with constitutional provisions. However, some observers close to the opposition consider it to be a victory without glory or even an outright electoral heist, mainly due to the absence of several key opposition figures. For their part, observation missions deemed the election generally peaceful and orderly, despite a few incidents reported in certain parts of the country. The opposition disputes this assessment, denouncing numerous irregularities and low voter turnout.
A report by WADR's Ariston Marcel Blay in Abidjan and voiced by Augustine Colley. In Burkina Faso, South Africa's former president has said he is considering working with the authorities in Ouagadougou in the fight against imperialism in the country and across the continent. Jacob Zuma made the remarks during talks with Burkinabe Transitional President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, where they discussed the decolonization of Africa as a central theme. The former South African leader has been in Burkina Faso since last Thursday as part of a visit by more than 700 people of African descent to the land of upright people. Jacob Zuma also delivered a lecture on the fight against imperialism in Ouagadougou over the weekend. Here's an extract of his statement.
I think this country is a glaring example wherein those who oppressed them wanted to continue to do so. What was good with the leaders here, they said not now. And it was therefore important to discuss with the president here, what can we do to ensure that this process that has been taken begins again in Africa to finally liberate Africa. The colonizers, since the time up to now, still believe that Africa belongs to them. And what we are discussing is, no, that time must end. We should run our own affairs. We can't even say we'll talk on this under the carpet. No, it's just facts. I'm very happy to have met my brother here because I think he's something in Africa that Africa will always remember. Our brothers here said this is a coup d'etat. It's not a coup d'etat. This country decided to free itself 100% from the colonizers, the kind of caliber of leaders who were there at that time.
South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma speaking there. In Mali, authorities have extended curfew in the Kai and Jola regions until the end of November 2025, following continued attacks by armed groups. The governor of Kai renewed the measure in force since the coordinated attacks of July 2025, which had targeted several localities, including Kaiville, Jema, Sandari, and Sajola. These measures are part of a preventive internal security strategy that has been regularly renewed for several months. Imoradet tells us more.
The curfew remained in effect from midnight to 5 a.m. in Mali's border regions, with exemptions granted to security forces, ambulances, and vehicles on official duty. The measure, enforced continuously for the past 4 months, targets areas exposed to armed incursions and persistent cross-border trafficking. In Jola, located in the Kulikoro region, the governor's office has also announced a curfew from November 1 to 30, 2025, running from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. The town lies on a key route linking central Mali to Bamako and has experienced a gradual increase in attacks since 2022, attributed to the elements of the JNIM who are seeking to expand their influence southwards. Authorities report several isolated incidents in recent months, including ambushes targeting government vehicles and gendarmerie patrols in rural areas of the district. According to the governor's office, the curfews are designed to protect civilians and facilitate security operations conducted by the Malian armed forces. However, the restrictions have had a notable impact on local economic activities, particularly night markets and intercity transport, both vital for supplying the affected communities. Regional leaders emphasize that the curfew is temporary and will be lifted once the security situation stabilizes and normalcy returns.
Imoradet reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
As a reminder, we are live online at wadr.org and on Facebook and YouTube at WADR English. Now, Chad has closed its border with Nigeria, citing security threats linked to alleged U.S. military plans to strike the region. The move follows a recent statement by U.S. President Donald Trump hinting at a possible military intervention in parts of Nigeria plagued by jihadist activities. From Abuja, Usman Omar reports.
Military sources in N'Djamena say President Mahamat Idris Deby Itno placed the army on full alert after intelligence indicated that armed groups from northern Nigeria were attempting to cross into Chad. The move comes as U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks accusing Nigeria of failing to protect Christians spark diplomatic tension in Abuja. National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu met with service chiefs to assess the implications of Trump's comment and coordinate a national response. International relations expert Sadiq Abba says Trump's statement was politically motivated and does not reflect official U.S. policy.
If you're looking at his personality, he is somebody who is reckless and absent-minded, but at the end of the day, he is not a personality that looks at the interests of an average American on the street.
Religious leaders, Reverend Joseph Hayab and Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, however, offered contrasting views on the issue.
Every sensible and true Nigerian who will look at Reverend Hayab on the face and say there has not been killing of Christians, that day I will know that he's not honest. Has there been a shift? That's a different conversation. But to say there is not, because for deliberate reasons, some people twisted this whole killing thing into farmers-herders conflict.
What is happening in Nigeria, nobody denies there's a lot of bloodshed, but it has no any religious or ethnic connotation. It's just a question of land and survival.
In Jos, Plateau State, residents expressed mixed feelings about the controversy.
To me, it is a very much welcome idea. Lives are being wasted, properties destroyed, people becoming refugees in their land, and people are becoming so apprehensive and restless. And if Trump's intervention will bring an end, fine.
We see it as a political witch hunt. I'm not in support of the government policy because what we expected from the government is totally out of the box. But concerning the Christian genocide in Nigeria, it is something we debunk in totality.
With Chad's border now closed and Abuja on alert, regional leaders are watching closely as diplomacy and security collide once again in the Sahel. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
In neighboring Benin, the proposed law to establish a Senate has reached a decisive stage. The National Assembly's Law Commission unanimously adopted the bill, which introduces several major amendments to the Constitution. However, on the streets of Cotonou, opinions remain divided over whether this initiative by parliamentarians is appropriate. Christopher Ticho reports.
On Monday afternoon, the Law Committee of the National Assembly gave the green light for consideration of the bill to revise the Constitution. Initiated by 2 MPs from the presidential movement, the text has been declared admissible, paving the way for its examination in a plenary session. As the process moves forward, reactions have begun to surface on the street of Cotonou.
As we all know, the question of the revision of the Constitution is a question that has crossed several governments. Today, as it has been done, I say bravo.
Now we can move on to something else. From now on, when a law leaves the National Assembly, it will first be amended by the Senate.
What role will the Constitution could play from now on? It must organize a general axis.
Why we still want to modify the Constitution to put in place an institution that violates the powers of the Constitutional Court, the powers of the National Assembly, the powers of justice, even the powers of the head of state, and the rights of citizens. It is very dangerous.
Following the Law Committee's decision, the plenary session will now vote on the admissibility recommended by the committee. To pass this first stage, the proposal must secure at least 82 votes out of 109 members of parliament. However, the bill has already drawn criticism. The opposition Democrat Party rejected the proposal over the weekend, denouncing what it described as a bill that fails to reflect the concerns of all Beninese citizens.
Christopher Ticho with the details of that report filed in by WADR's Aziz Adam Sule in Cotonou. Meanwhile, former Beninese President Thomas Boniai has strongly opposed a proposal to create a Senate, describing it as an anti-democratic move that threatens the country's institutional balance. Boniai, who governed Benin from 2006 to 2016, insists the initiative lacks national consensus and undermines democracy. He says he will neither join such an institution nor endorse what he calls an attempt to change the nature of the political system. The former Beninese president urges opposition lawmakers to block the amendment and calls for a national referendum, describing it as the ultimate expression of the people's will. This controversy unfolds amid heightened political tension. The opposition party, the Democrats, excluded from the upcoming 2026 presidential election due to insufficient endorsements. In Ghana, there are growing calls for citizens and environmental groups for an investigation and possible sanctions against the Member of Parliament for Asutufi North, Ebenezer Kwaku Addo. He is accused of inciting a mob against officers of the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. The incident, which nearly turned violent, has sparked widespread reactions, with many describing it as a test of President Mahama's commitment to combating illegal mining. From Accra, Nadri Tete reports.
According to the police, NIMOS operatives intercepted illegal miners on Saturday, November 1, and retrieved several items, including 2 unregistered vehicles, a pistol, and ammunition. The police say the MP later arrived at the scene with a group of men demanding the release of the suspects. When this demand was refused, the group forcibly freed the suspects and chased the NIMOS team away. A mob, reportedly incited by the MP, later stormed the Shridium police station, vandalizing vehicles and damaging parts of the building. Reinforcement from regional command with support from the military and the Zango chief eventually restored calm. Police have since launched a special operation to arrest those involved. But the MP's lawyer, Kwesi Jimfi, insists his client played no role in the chaos.
What was done was to de-escalate the situation. So it's very interesting that some proponents are putting out there that he went in there to seize, he brought in mob action and a whole lot of things. That's never happened. And that is why we are ready to actually assist the police with investigations.
Coordinator of the environmental advocacy group Eco-Conscious Citizens, Awula Sewa, believes immediate action must be taken.
And it just shows the dire situation we find ourselves in, where NIMOS can be attacked by persons who should know better. But yes, everybody is innocent until proven guilty, and we look to finding out what actually happened. But I'm sort of disappointed that as at now, the MPs have not yet been suspended. And we are very concerned about what appears to be selective justice.
She has also urged President John Dramani Mahama to take decisive steps, describing the incident as a test case for his government's fight against illegal mining. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and live online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Ivorian Constitutional Council confirms Ouattara's victory in the October 25 presidential election. Malian authorities extend curfew in Kai and Douala regions following continued terrorist attacks. South Africa's former president Zuma states his readiness to assist Burkina Faso fight against imperialism. Benin's former president Boniai rejects creation of a Senate as public debate heats up. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now take you to Sierra Leone, where a wave of public frustration is sweeping across the country following the recent decision by leading mobile network operators, that is Orange, Sierra Leone and Africell, to increase their tariffs from 60 Leone to 100 Leone. The move, which took effect last week, is sparking widespread criticism across the state. Many citizens are describing it as insensitive given the current economic challenges facing the country. Francis Boniface has more in this report.
According to citizens, the weekly data bundles rising from 60 to 100 Leone took effect without prior public consultation. This comes at a time when Sierra Leoneans are grappling with rising prices of essential goods, high transportation costs, and mounting unemployment. For millions of citizens who rely on mobile services for communication, business, education, and access to information, the new tariffs represent yet another blow to their already strained finances. Civil society groups and concerned citizens have called on the National Telecommunications Commission, NATCA, to step in immediately and compel the companies to review or reverse the increment. They argue that communication is a basic necessity and should remain affordable and accessible to all Sierra Leoneans. Observers warn that if the issue is not urgently addressed, it could lead to increased public tension and dissatisfaction. Many believe the government must act swiftly to protect consumers from what they see as an unjustified hike. As the debate continues, the call remains clear. Communication is a right, not a privilege, and the people of Sierra Leone deserve better.
Francis Boniface filed that report. Across the border, Liberia's Ministry of Commerce and Industry has officially launched a comprehensive 5-year strategic plan. The plan outlines a series of initiatives designed to boost trade, attract investment, and foster a more business-friendly environment across the nation. It aims to create a more competitive and diversified economy that benefits all Liberians. WADR's Abraham Parker reports.
Infrastructure development is another critical pillar of the plan. Speaking during the ceremony, Commerce Minister Madeleine Dagosa said the plan represents a significant step forward in the government's efforts to build a more vibrant and inclusive economy for all Liberians. She added that the ministry will support local businesses in developing high-quality products that meet international standards, enabling Liberian enterprises to compete more effectively in both domestic and the global markets.
Over the next 9, our strategic priorities will focus on promoting industrialization and value addition to reduce import dependency and stimulate local production, enhancing trade facilitation and export promotion to extend market access for Liberian goods and services.
Speaking on behalf of the business community, Liberia Business Association President James Strutter welcomed the launch of the 5-year plan, expressing optimism that it will create new opportunities for Liberian businesses.
Liberia is ready to move from dependency to productivity, from consumption to creation, and from potential to performance. We can make this vision a living reality, one that uplifts businesses, build confidence in our economy, and open Liberia doors to both local and international investment. Let us walk this road together with purpose, with courage.
The successful implementation of the 5-year plan will depend on strong collaboration between the government, the private sector, and civil society, a partnership the ministry says it has already begun to strengthen. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview segment focuses on Nigeria as reactions continue to pour in following Chad's decision to close its border with the country. N'Djamena cited security threats linked to alleged U.S. military plans in the region. The move follows a recent statement by U.S. President Donald Trump hinting at a possible military action in Nigeria. It also comes amid heightened insecurity, mostly in Nigeria's north, central, and northeastern regions. Our guest is Dr. Margie Peters, a security expert and country coordinator of Think Project Nigeria.
Since the pronouncement of Donald Trump, there has been a lot of interest and agitation around the security situation in Nigeria. And with the threat of an American invasion, everybody knows that if there's an invasion, there's an escalation of conflict in Nigeria, to be a humanitarian disaster. And I don't blame Chad. I expect Cameroon, Nigeria to do the same thing, because if there is a humanitarian disaster and Nigerians are running for safety, refugees from Nigeria will overrun any of its neighboring countries. So what Chad is doing, they're just being very proactive so that they will ensure that they protect their own sovereignty, their resources, their people against such insurrections. Most of the time in multipolar diplomatic conflict, why do you think other nations are interested in resolving? Why do you think we have international cross-border mediation? Because they are afraid of the conflict spilling into a humanitarian disaster and having a retinue and flock of refugees overrunning other systems.
How could this closure affect the cross-border cooperation between Chad and Nigeria against insurgent groups?
Yeah, closing the border is not the issue. Most of the countries in West Africa have very porous borders. So closing the border is just a diplomatic maneuver. It does not stop movement because most of the people don't even come in legitimately across these countries. So the porousness of the borders across the Sahel is what is making insurgent groups do better. So I don't think that will hinder anything. It's just officially there might not be direct conversation among them. But then it does not stop them going ahead to do what they need to do. People who do business with others in those countries will go ahead and do what they're doing. and all of that will not be hindered, I'm sure.
How could U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks about Nigeria's handling of religious issues affect Nigeria's relations with both the U.S. and neighboring African countries?
Well, I don't think it will affect Nigeria's relationship with its immediate neighbors, because diplomatic relations are not hinged on how you do with a third party. The American president said if. There are so many ifs in the conversation. There is issue of insecurity, and a lot of people are affected by it. So he's not politicizing the issue. He's concentrating on dealing with the problem that should matter to us.
So what strategies could West African nations adopt to prevent political statements like the recent one from U.S. President Donald Trump or external influences from destabilizing the already fragile Sahel region?
Nations are respected. Nations are engaged. Nations are talked to based on your strength, your visibility, and your power dynamics in the international space. West African nations, third world nations should stop going into the international polity as beggars. They should go to make contributions. They should go with policies. They should go with contribution for global growth and development. They should go as sovereign nations that have something to offer. That's the only way they will stop talking down on them. We've seen it happen in all meetings the American president have had with leaders of African countries.
Dr. Majid Peters, a security expert and country director of Think Project Nigeria. In the sporting world, African teams made a strong start to the FIFA Under-17 World Cup 2025 with opening day victories for South Africa and Tunisia at the Aspa Zone in Al Rayyan, Qatar. South Africa beat Bolivia 3-1 in Group A, while Tunisia thumped Fiji 6-0 in their Group D clash. Senegal was held to a 0-0 draw by Croatia, while Morocco lost 2-0 to Japan. Meanwhile, Wasim Slama and Fedi Taichi scored 2 goals each at Tunisia overwhelmed Fiji. Anise Saidi and Saifuddin Haj Abdullah also found the back of the net in the biggest victory of the tournament so far. Tunisia are in a tough pool that also includes Argentina and Belgium, and they face the South American side next on Thursday. Senegal had 13 shots at goal to Croatia's 6 but could not break the deadlock. They will now hope to do so against Costa Rica in their next fixture on Thursday. Morocco must now overcome Portugal in their next match following their defeat to Japan. The top 2 teams in each group automatically advance to round of 32, along with the 8 best third-placed teams, providing plenty of opportunity for qualification. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English, and stream live on WADR.org. I am Abdullahi Hassan. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and